Defense Department will spend more than $10 billion on healthcare modernization over the next 21 years. The Government Accountability Office has identified risks in that acquisition and other mission-critical IT acquisitions across government. Carol Harris is Director of Information Technology Acquisition Management Issues at GAO. Carol, welcome back. Thanks for coming on the program. What are you looking at here exactly? What did Congress ask you to examine regarding some of these IT acquisitions?
Congress asked us to look at the top acquisitions or major IT acquisitions across the federal government. And so we went through systematically to identify what we found were the top 16 major IT acquisitions across government. And they range from everything related to terrorism-related screening, foreign relations, the economy, and public health. And so failure in these systems would have a debilitating effect on agency missions. So that was the list that we identified for Congress.
The benefits here are obvious, and you write about them in this report. Potential cost savings with 13 of 16 of these because of shutting down legacy systems, eliminating paper processing, better service overall to the citizen. Are there common threads among the reasons that these acquisitions are at risk, Carol?
Yes, there are common threads here. One of the common challenges that we identified from these 16 included workforce issues as well as technical challenges. The majority of them, 11 in fact, had to re-baseline because they identified technical challenges within their system development efforts. Another common theme that we found that actually was encouraging is that the majority of these acquisitions are also utilizing incremental development, which, as part of FITARA, is considered an IT best practice. It's where we're moving away from these monolithic IT programs, breaking them up into smaller, more manageable chunks, and delivering functionality more quickly to the end user.
Do we have a sense yet, Carol, of whether that shift to incremental development is really a worldview shift, whether it's trickling down to smaller acquisitions, or is it still kind of focused primarily on these big ones? Do we even know that yet?
Well, we do know that, and we do believe that agencies are adopting more incremental development approaches on a large scale. A DHS, for example, is implementing agile development as one of their de facto incremental approaches across their IT acquisitions, both major and non-major. So these are very encouraging signs. And I also think that the FITARA scorecard that's put out by the House Oversight and Reform Committee twice a year has also played a major impact on the acceleration of the adoption by the agencies.
You are intimately involved in the delivery of the acquisition or the FITARA scorecard twice a year. What's the intersection between that work and the work that you're doing here to look at these major acquisitions? How do they touch on each other, Carol?
That's a great question, and the FITARA scorecard identifies major areas of best practice that IT acquisitions should be adopting. So incremental development is one. Also the consolidation of data centers, the better management of software licensing, having a comprehensive inventory of those licenses as examples, as well as increased CIO authorities so that CIOs have proper authority over their budgets to carry out these major acquisitions more effectively. And so as one example that we identified in one of the 16, such as VA's Electronic Health Records Modernization Program, a very critical program to our veterans. That's one where increased CIO authority would certainly help to improve the efficiency and the effectiveness of the deployment of the system.
And the CIO authority was something, as I read through the entire work that you and your team did, Carol, that it kept coming, not explicitly mentioned throughout the report, but I kind of read it between the lines in a lot of the work here, that this is still not where it should be. And I went back and looked at the last FITARA scorecard. That scorecard also reflects that as well, doesn't it?
Exactly. So when you talk about CIO authorities, one of the key authorities that we really hit on is CIO authority over the IT workforce. And workforce challenges by far was the most pressing challenge for the 16 acquisitions. And so having increased authority in that area for the CIOs would be really critical to the successful deployment of these critical systems.
We have about a minute left, and I'm not going to ask you to comment on this specific example, but the last time that Karen Evans, the new CIO at DHS, was on the program, she talked about a collaboration between her and Angela Bailey, the Chief Human Capital Officer at DHS, about an initiative on their cyber workforce. Is that the kind of partnership, is that the kind of collaboration that fulfills kind of the spirit of what FITARA and your work are talking about, Carol?
Absolutely. These experts, both in the IT field and the human capital world, need to come together and collaborate. So that's absolutely what we want to see, not just in cyber, but also in all aspects of IT, including systems engineers and architects as one example. So we want to see that proliferate across the agencies to better improve the landscape of IT.
Carol Harris, thanks very much for coming on.
You're welcome. Thank you, Francis.